All right, guys. So I think we should just get started because we can wait, but I think other people can join us. It will be recorded. So if someone wants, they can listen to it again, and we'll probably put it up on YouTube as well. So it should be fine. All right. So yeah, so I think we should just get started just to save some time. All right, guys. So first of all, let me introduce myself. So my name is Syed Usman Ubaid. Now I'm a registered migration agent and the director of the Sydney branch for Asia Pacific Group. Now, what we are going to do today is that we're going to talk about the partner visa, the basic requirements, the eligibility, everything today. And I'll try to keep it as simple, but as comprehensive as possible. Okay. And also at the end, we'll try to save some time so we can have a question answer session. It would be much easier for you to understand if you were asking me direct questions. So we'll just keep that for the end. All right. So yeah, so let's just get started. Yeah. So first of all, I just want to give a disclaimer that all that I'm advising right now is as per the law and it's general partner visa process. Every process is different, every case is different, so there will be a lot of things that might be relevant to you but it might not be relevant to another person, right? So to make sure that if you act on any information, you do consult us first and we'll be able to give you a personalized case to case, case specific plan basically. So yeah, so that's something I would recommend. But yeah, so let's get started now. So what I've set the agenda in a way that we can cover up all the key points that I get answered. I get questioned every day. So I have to answer these questions on a very regular basis. So is basically the kind of partner visas we can apply for. Then there's what kind of relationships can apply for it. Okay, do you have to be a de facto partner? And if then what you have to do, and should you be married, and in terms of marriage there are further complications. Then there's basically we have to look at the evidence of relationship in terms of if you're applying for a relationship, then we have to look at what will define you as a married couple or a de facto couple, right? So it's pretty much all mentioned in the law and it is regulated by the regulations in the migration law. So we have to look at in terms of the law. Now, we'll also discuss the cost and time frame. The cost is pretty much standardized, but time frames are pretty wild, right? It can take different cases, different amount of time. There are a lot of factors to it. So we'll keep that in mind as well. And then we'll talk about the Schedule 3 issue because a lot of people, they are facing Schedule 3 issues. It's not common for everyone, but we'll tell you what kind of applicants should get that, okay? And then at the end, we'll talk about the new developments and other key basically aspects to know about, and in terms of basically basically whatever is going on in because there's a lot of things that is in mainstream and there's a lot of things that is happening in the background, so you have to understand that as well. So if you're planning to apply for a partner visa or you're getting married in the next 6 months or 7 months, you need to make sure that you know the developments that are going on, and because they will directly affect you. Okay, so you have to be careful. Now, at the end, we'll talk about the questions, anything that you have. I'll be happy to answer anything, right? Obviously, we cannot go into too much detail, but we'll try to answer the best I can. Okay, so let's start with the type of partner visas. So the simplest way you can understand it is if the partners is basically onshore, the applicant. So basically, the first thing you have to understand is basically there will be two people in this relationship. One will be a sponsor, one will be an applicant. Now, applicant will define whether you're applying for the onshore or offshore. If the applicant is in Australia at the moment, they'll apply for the onshore visa, which is 820 and 801. If they're offshore, then any other country other than Australia, they will have to apply for the 309 or 100 visa. All right. Now, if you notice, I've used two subclasses. 820 and 801, and then 309 and 100. Now, the reason for that is the process is made in such a way that you don't get permanent residency right away. Okay. Now, there's what they've done is just to protect the Australian citizens and permanent residents. The immigration has made a law in such a way that you do not basically just protect the Australian citizens, so that if you get married to someone and they become a PR holder right away, and then your marriage breaks down, then there's no, you'll be in a very big, I would say, in a predicament, right? Because you have already given your sponsorship, they're already a PR holder, they don't need you anymore. So that's why what they've done is they've made it into a two-step process. So what they've done is they've give you a temporary visa. Okay. Now, visa means they are talking about basically an indefinite visa. Okay, which will basically will be once you apply for the 820, once you get the 820 visa granted, if you're applying onshore, it will be indefinite. There'll be no end date, and the best part would be that you'll be on a temporary visa, and you will already have a lot of rights, such as you'll be able to work as much as you want, you can study as much as you want, you can have children, you pretty much every right will be there for you, right? But you still will be dependent on your partner. So if the Australian citizen or PR holder, they decide to basically break up relationship with you, or you decide to break up with them, we have to inform the immigration, and they will have to cancel your visa. They'll give you amount of time, and you'll have to exit the country or apply for another visa. Okay, so 820 is just a temporary stage. Now stage 2 is a permanent stage, meaning at that stage, once it's granted, such as 801 visa, you will be a PR holder on your own. Okay, so the partner, the sponsor cannot kick you out. They cannot just call immigration and have you removed from the visa. They cannot cancel your visa. So you will be on your own basically as a PR holder. So that's when you actually become safe. So it's very important that you understand you don't directly get the PR. You get the stage 1 visa first, and after a while you can get a stage 2. Usually the law says once you apply for the visa 820 stage 1 visa, after that, within 2 years time, once you have been approved by the 820 visa, you can apply for the 801. Now 801 will take further more time, but we'll discuss it that in the later part of this video. Okay, and the same goes with offshore. First you get the 309 visa, you can come to Australia, you're offshore. Let's say someone is in China, your partner, let's say a husband is here and the wife is in China, they can apply for the 309. They will get the 309 granted, and they can come to Australia. And once they're in Australia, after 2 years have passed, they can apply for the stage 2. Now by 2 years, I mean from the day of the initial visa, which is 309. Okay, so not from the grant, but from the date of application. All right, so now let's move to the next part. So now we'll talk about the types of relationship. Now, 2 main types of relationships are de facto relationship or a married relationship. Now, when you talk about de facto relationship, we are talking about couples who are married and have started living together. Okay, but this is something, there's a clear distinction. For example, if you're dating is not considered a de facto relationship. You have to be living together, number 1, and number 2, you have to have the ties. You have to link yourself together. Basically, you are living as a couple, basically, right? So you cannot just say that, oh, we live in the same house with separate rooms or something. That won't work. You have to be living together, just like a proper couple, right? So that's very important. And usually they want you to have 12 months relationship before you can claim that you are a de facto couple. Okay, but this condition will not be applicable to you if you show 2 things. One of the 2 things. Number 1, if you show a compelling reason that why should you be granted a visa, number 1. And now compelling reason could be anything. It could be your health, your sponsor's health, or let's say your partner got really sick or something, and you have to take care of him or her. That would be a compelling reason. Or let's say you got sick or you got pregnant and something happened to you, right? So it, again, this is a very broad topic. This compelling reason could be anything. So but it has to be very big and very real. So you cannot just say that just because it's inconvenient, I cannot exit my country, so I have to apply as a de facto couple. So that's not a compelling reason. That's just a simple excuse, right? So it has to be a very big reason to be considered a compelling reason. Now, second thing in which 12 months can be basically waived off is basically if you get registered as a couple. Now, every state has a department of births, deaths, and marriages. Okay. Now, what you do is basically you go to births, deaths, marriages, and you get registered. Now, by registered, I mean you're not exactly getting married. It's just you have to show that for the purposes of the visa, okay, that is one of the reasons why people get it done. Because why else would anyone, register a relationship? Why don't they just get married? Because they know you're doing this just for the visa. So this is basically a legal document, okay, it's certificate similar to a marriage certificate in a way, and it will contain both your names and everything, and show that you got relationship certificate on this date. Everything will be mentioned on that. Now, what you need to do is we have to show that you have the ID document, you are living together, you're cohabiting a same space or same house or room or same apartment for that matter, and that will be considered a de facto relationship. Now, once you get this registration done, you will be considered a de facto couple. Now, this is usually the easiest way to waive off the 12 months requirement. If you have 12 months requirement, so if you look at it in a different way, is that either you have 12 months living together requirement met, meaning you have lived together for 12 months, or you have a registration certificate, or you have a very good reason to basically waive off this 12 months, such as compelling reason, right? So that's one thing. Now, coming to the married couples. Now, married couple is pretty straightforward. You just got married. The moment you get married, the next day you can apply. It's as simple as that, right? So there's no complication there, and there's no condition of living together for a certain amount of time or in a particular way or something. That's all allowed. Okay. Now, even if you're in a de facto relationship or a married couple, there's a lot of further things you have to do to establish the relationship, right? Which we'll talk in the next part. Like, how do you prove the relationship, right? So because this is one of the high risk visas, and a lot of immigration fraud is happening here. So immigration is being very careful. They are very picky, they are very careful, and they're very risk averse, meaning they will, if they're not sure about your relationship, they will dig in. They will ask you again and again. They might even conduct an interview, right? Wherever you located, whether you're in Germany or in India or Afghanistan, they will conduct an interview, right? So you have to make sure that your relationship is genuine and you are able to prove it. So just being genuine does not mean anything if you can't prove it. Okay? So that's very important to understand. Now, for married couple, again, you can apply right after that, right? Now, with married couple, there are certain things you have to keep in mind. Like certain countries, you can do marriage, basically registration over the phone, over the video calls, such as a lot of Muslim countries in which you can, do a marriage or nikah ceremony over the phone. Okay, so that will be considered, but there's a lot of conditions attached to it. So we have to be very careful, because a lot of people take too much liberty with it, and they just say, oh, we got married over the phone, my country recognizes it. Well, it's not as simple as that. You can apply, but it does not mean you should apply like that. So, and if you're applying with that, you need to make sure that you are going with the best documentation forward, so that you have a plan in place, and you're not just applying and then realizing that later on that, you get a refusal. So if you get a refusal, that will set you back thousands of dollars and years of work, hard work, right? And sometimes years of wait. If your partner is offshore or something, then it will be like 1 or 2 years of wasted, right? So it's very important you keep in mind a lot of things. It's just sometimes not as simple as just being married, right? That's one thing. Now, orientation. I just wanted to cover this part because a lot of people come to me and ask me that, okay, we are in a same-sex relationship. Will we be considered? Now, the good news is, as per the family law, as per the Australian law, you will be considered the same way as a normal heterosexual couple, right? So in terms of the new normal, so basically I shouldn't use the word normal. So the normal means you could be any kind of couple, same sex or opposite sex. That does not define basically your relationship. So if two people, both are 18 years old and above, and they are in a married relationship, or they are in a different relationship, they'll be given the same priority, they'll be given the same chance, same fair go at it as anyone else, right? So that's again a very good development. So this is something just for establishing the kind of relationship you can apply for. Now, let's talk about the evidence of relationship. So now, evidence of relationship, again, now there's a lot of ways you can do it. So the basic thing is, the onus is on the applicant, that can you establish your relationship or not? Because if you're basically in a relationship, you have to be able to prove it. Again, and if because if I tell you just normal documents, 5 or 10 type of documents you can upload to prove relationship, it would not be fair to you. The better way to understand is basically what does the law says, right? So regulation 1.09 specifically mentions what are the criteria to be considered a married couple or a de facto couple, right? So we look at those things. That's very important. Now, again, these are the 4 criteria. The first one being financial aspect, second one being nature of household, the third one being social aspect, and then nature of commitment. So all 4 should be covered in an ideal relationship. And if you are in a genuine relationship, then this will be easier to do, right? So let's talk about the financial aspects first. Now, with financial aspects, it's, as the name says, it's all about finances. It's all about the money part. It's all about basically who pays what, right? Now, for example, if you own a joint asset, okay, back in your country or here or any other country, you can prove it, right? You both names will be there in the title deed. You both might jointly own a car or a property or a land or something else, right? Those kind of things. And also they will look at the joint commitments, right? Like for example, you're donating to some charity together, right? You both do the same thing. You have the same goals financially. That means basically you're able to show that you're financially together. Now, one of the documents I always ask my client is that if you're in a genuine relationship, you wouldn't have any qualms to add your partner in a superannuation, basically as a beneficiary. So for example, if it's your wife or your girlfriend or it's your husband, if you're in a genuine relationship, you can add them as a beneficiary of your superannuation in case something happens. Now, that is a very big piece of evidence that if someone's willing to put you as their beneficiary, okay, for their insurance or their pension or whatever, or super, that shows that you are financially linked, right? And also the easiest way to do it is to show that you have a joint bank account. But with bank account, I always feel uncomfortable because a lot of people, they don't have a joint bank account with their partner. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's not like a compulsory thing. It's not a rite of passage that if you got in a relationship with someone, the first thing you do is open a bank account together, right? So that's also another effect. Like me and my wife, we still have separate finances sometimes. Like, so we have our own assets, everything. So does not mean we're not married. It's just that it's just one of the pieces of the puzzles, right? So if you have joint bank account, that's good. But if you just got a joint bank account just before the visa lodgement, it will be very obvious that you were in relationship for the past 12 months or 2 years, and then just got the bank statement now. So I doubt the case officer or the minister will put a lot of value on it, right? So that's one thing. Now let's move to nature of household. Now, nature of household could be a lot of things. Again, this could mean that you're paying a mortgage together. This could mean you are paying for bills together. This could mean that you're taking care of children together. It might be your own children. It might be a sponsor's children. You know, you got your stepchildren. In any version, if you're taking care of children together, it could be one or both applicants' children. That will be showing that you have your nature of household is like a normal family, right? That will establish that. Now, also the living arrangement, like who's living where, right? So if you're, let's say, living apart for 2 days a week, okay, fine, you have a job, but you're not living apart permanently. Okay, so that's also a part, because if let's say husband and wife, you got married, but the wife is living in Adelaide and husband living in Brisbane, obviously that will raise a red flag, and they will look into it. And why is that so? Like, are you working in different industries? Is there something specific you're doing? Like, because why would 2 people who are married, who are intending to live their life together, they're living separately? So we can prove it by showing that, okay, if they are living apart just for this specific time because she has a project or he has a project or he has some special assignment that he has to be apart from that, they've always been together and always will be together. You can do that. Now, apart from that, there's another thing, social aspect. Now, social aspect is very wide, very broad, because social aspects mean that publicly you're together, right? Public knows that you're together. Now, how do you do that? You don't have to scream that you're in a relationship. All you need to do is basically have your friends write a statement for you, have your family write a statement for you, write affidavit or statute declaration that you're together. There's a excuse me, there's a form called Form 888. It's a statute declaration that your friend knows you to be in a relationship. He knows your friend, he or she knows that you're together, right? So, and it's a compulsory document. So it's like if you can consider them as a witness, right? They are witnessing your relationship. So you need two of those forms. So that's another factor, that you can show that publicly or together. You can show multiple pictures that you went to a party together, you went to a nightclub or bar or restaurant or cinema together, when you might have gone to you might went on a trip to Turkey or Bali, or like any other country. So those kind of things. So now, if you, let's say, were on a trip and you put a pictures online on Facebook, that is an evidence as well. People liking it, people looking at the pictures. So that again shows that you are in a relationship. People can see that you are in a relationship. So they associate Mr. A to Miss B, right? So that shows that there's a link there. So that's why, again, a very important aspect, because socially, if you're a married couple, but no one knows about you, that you're married, then that creates red flags. And we have to make it as simple for the case officer as possible. In a way, we have to spoon feed him just to make sure they don't think too much of relationship, because sometimes relationships are genuine, everything, but they're not very shy. They're very shy. They're shy to do public display of affections. They're shy to even hug in front of other people. They're shy to even put up statuses together. They are not using social media. They don't use Facebook, stuff like that. So, but that does not mean that they're not in a relationship. So that's something, again, that comes down to how you prove it. The onus will be on the applicant or the migration agent, for that matter, to help create that kind of evidence, right? So we can cover that up before the case officer brings it up, because in the case officer asks you, then they will go hard. They will actually, ask you. You cannot joke around with them. You have to give them proper documentation. And they might not give you a lot of chances. Once, twice, but you have to be careful. Now, apart from that, nature of commitment. Now, nature of commitment could be, again, it's a very broad field. It could be something like you bought a house together, you're paying mortgage together, or you're having like you supporting each other for studies, or you supported each other for studies at some point. Like one person was earning, one was working, and you did it. You can establish it in terms of documentation. And let's say you like, I had a couple. Fun fact. I had a couple. They adopted some kind of, I think, koala bear or something like that together. What they did was they paid the donation for the, like, I think some conservatory, basically zoo, something like that, and they were paying evidence for it. And they had pictures with the koala from 2017 onwards. So that shows, they together, they did a huge, they took up on a huge project together. So whether it's charity, whether it's commercial, anything, that shows that you are in a relationship. So in this, they look at the number of years you've been together. So for example, someone met in high school and they gradually got married, like engaged and married and everything, that shows progression, and they can see that, okay, this is a very logical case. So that will play a part as well, right? So yeah, so this is obviously general requirements. There will be a lot of documents that while listening to this, you will realize, okay, I can do this, I can do this. So we'll have to look at the factors that what makes your relationship a genuine relationship. It might be only three aspects. You might not have a lot of assets. You might not have a lot of money. So you might not have a joint asset. But that does not basically mean that you're not in a relationship. So this is, again, comes down to the fact that every case is different. Every case will need separate documentation. Every case has its own flavor to the application, right? Every couple is different. So we have to cover all of that, right? If it's same sex or not, if it's Japanese or it's Peruvian, if it's Americans, Indian, whatever. So we look at the total amount of facts in your case and get the documentation based on that. Okay. Now let's move to the next part. Now here's the cost and time frame. Now, in terms of cost, the visa is one of the most expensive visas, unfortunately. It costs $78.50 plus a charge. Now that brings it almost to $79.60, something like almost $8,000. And every year in 1st of July, the cost increases by 1 or 2% depending on the inflation. So let's assume $8,000. Okay, so it's almost $8,000. Now $8,000 is a very huge amount. So you cannot be wrong with it. You cannot take risk with it. You cannot take any kind of liberty with it that, oh, I'll apply for it and then we'll see what happens. Not really, because if you can do it, but it could come back to haunt you because it's related to your husband or your wife or your girlfriend or her boyfriend. So they will hate you if you don't do it properly. So that's why the sponsor and the applicant both have to be vigilant if they're hiring the right agent or not. If they're doing it themselves, they equipped with all the laws. They need to be doing a lot of reading. They need to be well versed with laws, regulations, sections, everything, right? They need to know every bit of partner visa details to apply for it. It's not like you cannot apply for it, but it's always helps to have a professional help you with this process, because ultimately this is going to take a lot of time. As you can see, the processing time is crazy. Now, if you look at the onshore visa, okay. Now, if you notice, onshore visas are uh, slightly longer than offshore visas, okay? Because onshore visa means that the partner, the applicant, and the sponsor together, right? They're in Australia. So of course, they don't have the same urgency to get the visa granted as a person whose partner is overseas, right? So this is again a factor that if you're onshore, you have to wait slightly longer. But the good thing is you get a bridging visa. So let's say someone has a 485 visa or student visa. Okay, let's say they have a visa in March of 2022. Visa is expiring. Now, if they apply for the partner visa before that time, they'll be on a bridging visa. And this bridging visa will run all the way till the visa is granted. So the good thing is you will have bridging visa for the next 2 years. You will get your Medicare card. You will be able to work. Everything would be, pretty much. You might not have the right status, but you will still have the rights to work, study, and everything, right? So that's again makes it very easy for you to do a lot of things. So yeah, so now onshore visa stage 1, as I said, 820 visa, it takes 22 to 32 months. So the average time is 2 years. Now, it's not always 2 years, because last year and including this year, actually, I've applied for a lot of visas, and at least if I have to give I forgot, I haven't calculated the number, but I think it will be around 30% of the cases got approved within 6 to 8 months. Okay, so they didn't really had to wait for 22 months. So when they say 22 to 32, this is based on all the number of applications they have, okay? And it's like a running average. So they take an average. Now, there are people who would get it in 35 months, and there are also people who will get it in 6 months. So now, which one are you? That depends on how you put up the document, how you do the actual work, right? So stage 1, 820 onshore visa can take up to 2 years to come through. And offshore visa are 1.5 years to 2 years, okay? But again, most cases, at least from my experience, I've seen get granted within 12 to 14 months period. But again, this changes every month. So this depends on the load the immigration department has. This depends on the work they are doing, the COVID affected period. Sometimes it takes a lot of time. So right. So yeah. So anyway, so this is another factor. But now stage 2. Stage 2 usually takes 11 to 17 months for onshore people. We are talking about 801 visa, and stage 2 for offshore people takes 20 months. Okay. Now, here's one more angle that you have to understand. Right? That when you talk about stage 1 and 2, a lot of people get confused. So I'll try to clear it up so you get a better understanding. So let's assume a case. Okay. Let's assume Mr. John gets married to Miss Emma. Okay, Miss Emma is a British citizen, and she's living in Australia right now. Okay, and she's on a student visa. Her student visa is expiring. They apply for the 820 visa. Okay, now her visa expiring in December. She applies in November they got married in October. They apply in November for the 820 visa. Now, what will happen at the moment her student visa expires in December? She will go on a bridging visa. Okay, now that will run for 2 years. Okay, now, because the visa processing takes 2 years. Now, whenever she gets a visa, let's say she gets a visa on 23rd month, let's say, okay, from November till 23rd month, she gets a visa granted for 820. Once it's granted, she has an indefinite stay, as much as she wants to stay. She just has to wait for 1 more month to complete the 24 months or 2 years from the date of application, November of this year, so that she can apply for the 801 visa. So she will get an email on the 24th month, on the particular date, that, okay, now you are eligible to apply for the second stage visa. And then she'll apply for the 801, and that will take further 6 months, 8 months, depending on the time frame at that time. It will take that much time to get granted. And once that is granted, she'll be a PR holder after 801 is granted. Now, during this time, till the 801 is granted, if John and Emma have a breakup, let's say they have broke up, something happened, what will happen is John is by law supposed to tell the immigration that we have broken up. We are no longer in a relationship. So if they have separated, they have to let them know. If they have divorced, they have to let them know. If they are still they need some break, they need some time to reconcile, they can take that time, but they have to let the immigration know. They have to be as honest to the immigration department as possible. So this is very important. That if you have separated or you're about to get divorced, something, you have to let the immigration know that this is happening. Because what if they grant a visa to Emma when you are not even in a relationship? So she got a visa on a false pretense, right? So that is illegal. So we cannot do that. So that's why you have to be as honest as possible, so the immigration does not take the wrong decision, right? So that's one thing. Now, here's one element that some people would be affected by this, not all. So some people who don't even know about this, don't worry. Some people they will understand. So basically, Schedule 3 is for, so one of the criteria for application of partner visa is that you apply basically value on a substantive visa. Okay, and by substantive visa we mean any visa. Okay, well, let's say, and this is something we're talking about the onshore applicants. This is not for offshore because they don't have a visa, right? So it's not for them. We're talking about people who are onshore and applying for the 820 visa, it's onshore visa. So what happens is, let's say, again, the same case, but Emma, she was on a bridging visa when you applied for the, she was not on a student visa, she was on a bridging visa when she applied for the partner visa. Now, Schedule 3 criteria will apply to her because she does not have a valid visa. So it specifies people that, okay, if you're in Australia and at the time of application you are illegal in Australia, like unlawfully here, or you are holding a bridging visa, then we have to we can still apply the visa. See, application for partner visa is allowed. That's by law, it's allowed. That's not an issue. The issue will be we have to prove that there's a compelling reason why you should consider Emma's application. Okay, now that's where the complicated part begins, because again, compelling reason, not every couple has it, right? It's not very easy to prove that, oh, someone is sick, someone is dying, or someone has a life-threatening disease or accident or something. It's very hard to do that. So we have to look at it case by case to figure out what would be your reason. So this is for people who are on a bridging visa and about to get married to an Australian citizen. Either you can wait for the visa to be granted and then apply for the partner visa, or if you want to apply during bridging visa, then you have to have a good reason. Now, one of the compelling reasons could be that you have a child together and that child will be affected if your visa was refused, right? Because of this child, because your partner is a citizen, that child automatically becomes an Australian citizen. So that will play a part that, okay, if your child is going to get affected and an Australian child is going to get affected because you are on a bridging visa, they will give you that benefit of doubt. They would still consider your visa application, right? So this is one of those criteria, but this is again very specific. Very few people will have to go for this, and it will be either as a result of bad luck that you apply in the wrong timing or something, or because you have messed up your visa applications a lot and you got a refusal or a MRT or something going on, and you have to work on that. So that's why it's a very rare situation. It's like probably 1 in 30 cases I get. So I'm sure like most people will not apply to most people, but if it applies to someone, please discuss it with a professional or me or anyone from our team. We'll figure it out. Okay. Now there's a lot of developments happening with partner visas, right? Now, with developments, I mean, there are a lot of changes happening. One of the changes, as I mentioned, is the new law is coming into effect. Okay, and it was supposed to be implemented in July, then it got pushed off to November, and then, as you know, like it's still not implemented. But this will have serious implications on all of us. Okay, now it is expected that as per the new law, the sponsor will need to be approved before the visa can be lodged. Okay, and as I wrote, expected to be implemented too soon. Now, what it means is, right now, what happens is, let's say I'm apply for, again, let's say the same case, John and Emma. Okay, John is an Australian citizen, Emma is a British citizen. Okay, now if we are applying now before the new rules are there, in the current situation, we can apply the visa. Once the visa is lodged, we use the number to apply for the nomination application. That's a separate application for sponsorship. Like, because just Emma does not have to meet all the criteria. John has to also meet certain criteria, right? Such as he has to have a good character. He has to be a citizen or PR holder. You know, he has to have his own set of criteria that he has to meet, which are usually not a problem in most cases. But and he must not have sponsored anyone for the last 5 years. So usually what happens is we apply the visa and we apply the nomination for sponsorship as well, and both run together and get granted together or almost the same time. Okay. Now what they're trying to do here is that because this gets you the bridging visa right away, because the visa is granted, visa is applied before the nomination has been applied. This is how it works. You get a bridging visa. Okay. Now what they're doing is flipping it out. They're saying, okay, nomination will be applied before the visa. Now what it means is basically, unless you apply a visa, you will never get a bridging visa. All right. So now this makes it complicated, because if you're applying for a nomination first, that means it has to be approved. And if it's approved, that means then you can apply the visa. Now, the problem with that is that if you don't have enough visa left, how will you apply the visa? How will you go on a bridging visa? You'll have to go another student visa or a sponsored visa or skill visa, something like that, which is going to make it very hard for a lot of people who are in Australia at the moment, right? So this is again one of those elements that can completely derail a lot of cases. Okay, so this is one of the things which is giving me a lot of stress, because a lot of my clients, they're taking this thing too lightly. And once this has been implemented, then they would have no option left, because their visas would run out. Because again, the question is, how much time will the nomination application take? Right now, we don't care about it because we apply the visa before the nomination. So we don't care. It will be granted together. It doesn't matter to us, right? But if your nomination, if visa is dependent on the nomination, okay, then nomination can take 3 months, 1 month, 1 day, 1 hour, or 1 year. How do we know? So unless it's implemented, we wouldn't know the time frame. Now that time frame can derail a lot of cases. If it's 1 year, they could say 1 year for the nomination, 1 year for the visa. It's still 2 years, but it will be a nightmare. So that's why we have to be careful. Like if you are in a relationship, in a de facto relationship, and you think you can make it to the partner visa stage, go for it. If you are about to get married sooner and go for this. But do not wait, because if you, or let's say if you don't know when you're going to get married, that's a different story. Or let's say you know you have a fiance or you have a partner and you guys are still thinking about it, mixed views about it, then talk to a professional, come to us, we'll guide you, but make a decision. Either if you're delaying it, then you have to take the responsibility for the new rules as well. But if you're applying now, then you have to make sure that then go. Let's say if you're planning to plan January or February, why wait? Go for December, right? So unless there's a reason not to, but there's a lot anyways, but that comes down to case basis, right? So this is something I'm very worried about, and this is already well overdue. Okay, so this is again something you have to think about right now. Now, apart from that, one more angle you have to think about, because right now I already talked about the fact that Australian government has divided into 2 stages, temporary and permanent stage, so that Australian citizens are protected. Now, what about your protection? The applicant, right? So when the applicant is applying, what is your protection? Now, your protection is that just because they are sponsored, they cannot abuse you, they cannot commit domestic violence against you, they cannot abuse emotionally or physically or sexually, any other way. So what they've done is they've created a set of laws that if an applicant, okay, or your dependent child has faced domestic violence or any kind of abuse, okay, you're able to prove it. Okay, let's say you are able to prove it, you will still get the visa granted, even if your relationship breaks down. Let's say someone committed someone hit you, you had a big alteration, you have fight, something happened, you got hurt, you informed the police, you filed the report, they got basically convicted, everything got done. If it's on paper, you can, even if that person has divorced, even if the person is basically not eligible anymore, even then you will still get the visa granted if you can prove it, right? There are a lot of different angles to it, but again, you will have this option to prove it and get the visa. Okay, even if you're divorced or something, right? That's one thing. Now the second thing is that if your partner has died, let's say you are happily married. Now let's say Emma and John, same example, they're happily married, they'll apply the partner visa. Now John, for some reason, gets into an accident and dies, right? Now, does that mean Emma is screwed over? Not really. If they're married, now this is where the difference arises. If they're married, then we we just have to prove that this relationship was happy up to the point of his death, and it would have continued if reasonably, right? So in a reasonable assumption, it's not like you never had fights or something. Every couple has a fight or something time to time, but arguments and stuff like that, that's not the point. The point is the relationship would have continued. If you can prove it, then you can still get the visa granted. So that's another angle, right? Now at the end, also there's one more angle, that if you, let's say, your relationship breaks down or something happens, right, you can still get the visa granted if you can prove that you have really close business, cultural ties or personal ties. Let's say you have a child in Australia or who's an Australian citizen, and it will adversely affect the child, and you can still use that to get the visa granted even if your relationship is broken down. Now the problem with that is it's very hard to prove. Okay, because how do you prove, unless, okay, see, if you're very rich, yes, you can own multiple businesses and everything, then obviously you can show that, see, I have very big business interests in Australia, I have close ties to Australia culturally, or let's say business wise, I should be granted and considered as an exceptional case. They'll still consider you, but that does not mean they have to, right? So again, these things come down to the fact that the subjectivity. So I don't like to work in the gray area, because the gray area means that we have to make sure, when we have to be able to take that risk, right? Because if you meet all the criteria one by one, you are pretty much guaranteed a visa if you're in a genuine relationship, right? But if there's a gray area, that you meet certain requirements, you don't meet certain requirements, then it's a gray area. Then it becomes kind of basically hard to get the visa approved. Now we still get it done, we still help you with the process, but then accountability has to be there, responsibility has to be there, because a lot of people think that if they're hiring a migration agent, their job is done. Yes and no. Yes, your application will be put up in the best way possible. Yes, no, because a migration agent or anyone for that matter cannot guarantee the outcome, right? So it has to be a joint effort, because I cannot work on anything unless my clients give me documents. If you don't even give me your passport details, I can't even confirm your age, right? So we have to work both ways. So that's why it's very important that the accountability is there from both parties when you do it something like this, right? And it's a very long process. So you cannot afford to make a mistake, because if your wife is stuck overseas and you uh, make any mistake and your visa gets refused, then you're in trouble. So that's why it's very important that you try to ensure that is done the best way possible. You can put as much time as needed, use a weekend or day off or whatever, take guidance, whatever, but do it properly once and properly. Okay, so that's one thing. And apart from that, basically, now I would, because obviously this is, I think we have covered majority of the element, because there's so much to it. It will take me 2-3 hours to cover every little nitty gritty, but this will cover up majority of your questions, and this should cover up majority of the aspects you need to think about, right? Now, I would love to take any questions. So, Rahul, if you're there, you can basically curate some questions so we can go one by one. Let me quickly take a look at the question and we'll go one by one, okay? Okay, so I'll go with Adam first, okay? So Adam asked a question: do you need to register your birth, deaths, and marriages if you were married overseas, or do you just provide overseas marriage certificate? Does 2-year permanent rule apply to onshore visa application? Okay, the first answer is no. If you are already married overseas and you already have a marriage certificate, you do not need to get registered, because Australian law accepts an overseas marriage certificate. So, for example, if you got married in Guatemala, you are married there. You're married as per the law of the land of Guatemala. You will still be able to apply, right? So that's one thing. Now the second thing is, does 2-year rule apply to onshore visa? Okay, let's go with Akash. This is the last question I think we came just came now. It said, is it possible we sorry, it says, is it possible we get married, the partner is onshore and apply for the visa, but we live in different states due to work commitments? Well, as I covered, yes, you can apply for it, but the problem is that comes out to the commitment issue. Like if you are, let's say your partner is in, let's say, different state, but you never live together. If you never live together and she's like, you get married today, you get married and then you live separate states, it wouldn't look genuine. It will look very made up, right? So you have to be careful. Like if you're living separately, then there's obviously you should not be permanently living apart. Okay, so temporary, yes, if she has a work assignment, but one-off thing, yes. But overall, if that's what your normal procedure, that you got married in one state and then you went to separate ways, that's not marriage. That is, and it will be a nightmare for you to prove it. Okay, so so let me go to other questions. So sorry, guys. I'm just going I'll try to cover all of them. Okay, so just bear with me. Okay, I think Adam asked another question, that if Emma stage 1 is approved after 30 months, does she go straight to the permanent or still have to apply for the permanent thereafter? If the sponsor rule comes into play after you have paid for the visa, but while applying, does it affect us? How long does it take the department to pick up our cases? Okay, fine. So I'll go one by one, the easy answers for each of them. So the first answer, if Emma stage 1 is approved after 30 months, does she go straight to permanent visa? No, she does not go straight to permanent visa. She still has to apply for it. Like still, the time duration for the stage 2 process will be low, shorter, but you still
important.
Right. And it says
it proves more.
Yeah.
Stage 1 में कि
I don't know.
Can you mute, guys? I think it's really hard to hear. Please, guys, can you mute? Yeah, thank you. So yeah, so that's one thing. The second answer, Adam, would be that sponsored rule comes to play after you pay the visa. While okay, so once you've paid the visa, you are in. Doesn't matter, you're not uploaded all the documents, you're still in. They cannot change your process for you. Okay, so that's done. Once you're paid, you're locked in. Okay, so that's it won't affect you or hurt you, right? That's for, otherwise I wouldn't recommend you to apply as soon as possible, right? That's one thing. Now the third thing is, how long does it take to depart? So picking up cases again depends on, it's not like they want you to wait. It's just that the process is, there's such a huge queue over there that it just takes time for them to come around to your case. That's pretty much it, right? Sometimes. So it is taking 2 years, right? Unfortunately, and this is pretty much a normal process. So that's what it takes, unfortunately, right? So that's one thing. Now VD asked, have you come across people who are engaged but could not get married because of the border closure, but got their relationship registered here in Australia because they couldn't live together? Did anyone got the visa in similar situation? Okay, so someone who's engaged but could not get married. Okay, now see, if you're engaged and you're not married and you are not in living together, okay, that means you're not de facto, you're not married, you can't apply. But there is a visa which is called 300 prospective marriage visa. Okay, so for people who have their fiancés coming to Australia, that is the visa. But the problem with that is it takes almost 1.5 to 2 years to come through. So it just defeats the point of applying that visa, right? So it's again one of those things that you may apply, you may not apply, but you have to get married. You have to get married, or because if she's offshore, de facto becomes nearly impossible. How would you prove that you were living together for 12 months, right? Or so that's why I wouldn't recommend it generally. Now, is it possible if we so sorry, no, I think we'll go to Danveer now. Sir, my partner is Australian citizen and we are together for this year December, but she's notified the central link that we are together from June this year. Well, it's not going to be an issue as such, but depends, because it's an innocent mistake, so I don't think that it's going to be used against you, because like unless you have taken any clear advantage out of that or something, then that's a different story. But that's again, that depends on a lot of factors. I don't think that's going to be a big deal, but yeah, but obviously the thing is, ultimately you have to be as truthful as possible. Now you could argue that you didn't know about the rules, like how do I know that I'm considered de facto or not? I never talked to a lawyer or a family lawyer or divorce lawyer, so you can argue that. But again, ideally you have to keep one story in every document, every application, right? But yeah, but I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker. It's going to be it will look bad, but they won't go as far as asking every other department that did you see their names ever. They won't really do that. Now, Manthan Thakur said, I have got my invitation and have my girlfriend overseas, but would the best way to a way to call her over here, student something? Well, if you got my invitation, that means you're not a PR holder right now, right? And she's your girlfriend again. Girlfriend is not being girlfriend not enough. You need to be in a de facto relationship, living together. So that means that you have to get your visa first. Okay. Now, once you get a visa granted, then you apply a part-time visa for her. That's unfortunately the only way you can do it right now. If you can add her now, then you lose points and you will be ineligible. Your invitation will be invalid. So there are a lot of factors. So I would recommend you get the visa first and then apply for her and get married to her. You can't do de facto overseas. It's just impossible to prove, right? Yeah. And especially depends on the country as well. Like some countries do not recognize, like legal status of de facto couples. So that's one thing. Okay, so Gurjot asked that in case of offshore partner intending to get married, Australia with a PR holder, okay, can they get a visitor visa and then apply for onshore? Yes, you can. Yes, you can definitely do that. And they also asked, or they have to apply offshore visa after getting married and then apply. So basically, so if you can apply a visitor visa and you can bring the partner here and then apply the onshore visa. You can definitely do that. But the only problem with that is you have to make sure that visitor visa does not have NFS condition, which is called no further stay condition. Sometimes for young people especially, they put this condition in that you cannot apply for any other visa while you're in Australia. Okay, so let's say someone comes on visitor visa. Now they have this condition 8503. It will be written on the actual grant letter that you cannot apply another visa. Sometimes they put it only, like I can put a percentage on it, but like I think 30 odd percent. Yes. So if they have something like that, but majority of cases they won't put it. So you can apply for it. You bring them onshore, or you get married and then bring them onshore, or bring them onshore and then get married. That's up to you. That's not a problem. Okay. Now, I think then Bilal Ahmed asked that I'm engaged and looking to get married in 2 months. I'm on PR. I'm planning to apply visit visa so I can bring her ASAP, apply for exemption, and then apply it here. Okay. Well, yeah, that's actually a sound plan. Yeah, you can, you're PR holder already. You can apply visitor visa, bring her here, and then apply for partner visa. That's definitely true. But the problem here is that for your partner to be considered on a visitor visa, the visitor visa, again, remember one thing, guys, visitor visa right now is taking crazy amount of time. If I look at the official timing, it shows, I think 8 months or something. So it's crazy amount of time. The last time I checked, it was 8 to 16 months. So visitor visa used to take 2 months, sometimes 1 month. Now it's taking huge, like months. Okay, 6 months, 8 months. There's no particular time for it. And visitor visa is one of the riskiest visas. Why? Because visitor visa can be refused for any number of reasons. If you, let's say, Bilal, if you're bringing your, let's say you married, you bring your partner, they could refuse that, oh, she does not have a job there, because for visitor visa, they have to look at her as per the visitor visa law, which says that the person has to have incentive to return back to the country. Now, if you're showing that Bilal Ahmed is living here, her husband is living here, how do you prove that she will go back? Like, why would she go back? So that's why it's kind of tricky, but possible, right? So like, it's a sound plan, but if you get a visa granted for her, great. If not, then again, go with the offshore visa. And also the offshore visa is a lot quicker. Remember that. Okay. Okay. Now I'll go with, okay. Okay, Ram Dinesh says that living together now, intended to apply a spouse visa or de facto. What proof we need to show that we are in relationship before and after? Okay, so Ram Dinesh, I've already discussed in quite a lot of detail already, like in terms of social aspect, nature of commitment, nature of household, all those financial documents. That's how you prove it. Okay. Obviously, there's a lot of, we have checklists for that, we have samples for that. So if you contact us, we'll provide you with those things and we can assist you. You can note down our email address. We can assist you with those kind of things. But again, it depends on how you prove it. Now, every relationship is different. So we have to look at the case, understand it and study it, and then recommend you the documentation, right? So that's possible, but again, that comes down to the fact that if you're applying for de facto, so again, you said spouse or de facto. Now, if you're married, then you go for spouse. If you're not married, then you go for de facto. So you have to decide which one is it. Okay, if it's de facto, the rules are different. Slight details are different. Like it's slightly harder to prove. So that's the thing, right? So you have to be first decide that, and then we'll figure out. And if you need help, we're there for you. Now, Saturn says, I'm on 485 graduate work visa, trying to get married, and my partner, and she is offshore. I first get married and get my partner to apply together for 180 visa was the best option. Okay, so Saturn, or whatever your real name is, you see, it depends on your partner. So for example, your fiance or someone, let's say you get married, but since you're on a 485 visa, that means you do not have a PR yet. Okay, so you can get married and bring her on a 485 visa, dependent visa. 485 has a version called 485 dependent visa. You can do that and bring her over here. That's one way to do it. Or second way is that you get your PR, okay, on your own, get your PR, become a PR holder, 189, 190. So 189 is pretty much dead right now. So 190 will be the main option. Get the PR and then apply with her. Now, you can apply 190 with her, but again, that comes down to the fact that does she have the right occupation or not? So for example, if you're a civil engineer, you're, for example, in NSW, you meet the criteria, you can get the invite in the next 3 to 4 months. Now, she has done BSc physics. It's going to be very hard for you to get the invite for her because she won't get you the full 10 points. So if she gets because partner can give you 10 points with 6 each in English and skill assessment in long-term list, or they can give you 5 points for 6 each. If she only gets 6 each in English, she can only give you 5 points, not 10 points. So you lose points. From 90, you drop down to 85. So it's better to get your PR first, secure yourself, and then apply for it. It's the same way in a plane, they tell you that even if you're chatting with a child, first put your oxygen mask on, then protect the child. Same thing here, like protect yourself first and then add her. Be careful, right? Now, Priya is asking what is the cost of my services. Okay, so Priya, it depends on the kind of work you're doing for you. Like what is your process? I would not feel very comfortable discussing here because this is just for free information for everyone. But obviously, if you need particular advice, I'm happy to. You have my email address. Contact me. I'll explain you in detail. Okay. Thank you so much. Now, in terms of again, Adam asked the same question. Like I'll happily answer you all questions for the fees and everything. The reason I do not like sharing the fees and everything because this video would go up on Facebook and YouTube and everything, so it becomes kind of tricky for me to like because fees changes time to time, case to case, so that's why it just doesn't feel right. That's the thing. But it's I would guarantee you one thing, it is competitive with the market. It is not going to be overly expensive, but it's going to be because see, I have to allocate my time, so it's not going to be very cheap, but it's not going to be expensive either. I can guarantee that much, right? So we are going to, because the reason is I don't believe in quantity. I rather do it, take few cases but do good cases, simple as, right? And that's why I keep a very high success rate in this. Now, apart from that, Miliana Rawa, sorry, I might be slaughtering your name, sorry for that. So I'm currently offshore. My husband is a citizen and we have 2 children. Been married 14 years. He's a FIFO worker in Western Australia and visa. However, now I have been granted a medical visa because urgent medical treatment required. Well, Miliana, I'm surprised. Your husband is a citizen and you have 2 children together. I don't understand. Like you should go for a partner visa. Like, and also remember, okay, now here's actually I should have mentioned this earlier. Now for your situation, what will happen is you will have to the best part is because you're offshore. Okay, I don't know which country you're from. Your name I can't decide, but let's say Philippines. Okay, that's the best guess. Let's say in Philippines. Now, if your partner, you've been married for 14 years. If you've been married for even 4 years or more, we can get a PR directly. We don't need to go with the stage 1, stage 2. We'll go for stage 2 directly. We can do that. You can get a visa combined. So what happens? You get both the visas because law says you have to get stage 1 before the 2. So you get both of them 1 minute apart. That's the solution for you. Go for it. Definitely. We'll help you. But this is like definitely like you got a medical visa, but you've been married for such a long time. You have 2 children, and since your husband is a citizen, your children should be PR holders or citizens already, because if you're a citizen, your child born anywhere in the world is a citizen by law. you can apply anytime you want. So definitely go for it. First apply for your children's citizenship and then apply your partner visa. Go for it. And you got a medical treatment visa, so you're coming onshore anyway. So continue with, come here and apply for the partner visa. Okay. Now, okay, Gurjot is asking, can a de facto relationship resident already in Australia get a visitor visa exemption easily with partner currently offshore? Okay, I don't understand the question, but I would say that yes, you can, but obviously, if you're asking that the partner, the sponsor is here and the partner, the wife or husband is overseas in, let's say, India. Now, yes, you can get exemption. Exemption is for such people, like you are a partner of an Australian citizen, you are a family member, you can get this exemption from there, right? So that's one thing you can get. Okay. Now, okay, so Akash says, thanks, man, need to leave, your session informative. Thank you, Akash, for appreciating me. And Saturn says, don't need to points to apply. Yes, Saturn, you have enough points to apply now. The moment you get married, you have to declare yourself as a married person. Now, if the moment you say you're married, your points will go down depending, or stay the same depending on the partner. If your partner is skilled with 6 each in English, she gives you 10 points, you can replace it. But if she doesn't, or he does, I don't know your gender, so if he does not have your the same skills or something, you will go down in points, right? Unskilled partner will give you 0 points. The skilled partner will give you 10 points. So that's where it matters. So trust me, it will matter, and this will make or break the case. So yeah, so that's oh yeah, Miliana is from Fiji. So Miliana, thank you. I almost got close by. Yeah, so geographically very close. Yeah, not close, yeah, or kind of, yeah. So Ramnesh said you're on a 485 visa for 5 months, you can go to India and come back when the 2 months left on visa. Yeah, you can do that. Yes, you can. So basically you have 5 months left, and out of you want to go at the end, you can do it. See, right now they're allowing people to exit and come back to Australia. You can do it, but again, I would recommend people to be careful, because leaving the country, and if any new variant comes in, we all could be in a very bad situation. So I just don't want to be in a position. I've had some clients, I recommended them not to go, and they're stuck. And then their flights got cancelled, they lost their jobs, they went a lot of trouble. So I know citizens who were screwed over because they went there, lockdown happened, they lost flight, they'll book another flight, that got cancelled. They lost $10,000-15,000 just on flights. So be careful. That's why I'm saying that you can do it, but be careful. Have a proper advice, because whatever I'm telling you here, obviously I'll know that particular 2-3 lines and give you answers, because once I know you, your personality, your risk averseness, your risk-taking ability, then I'll tell you actually what you should do. But in your case, I would say don't take any unnecessary risk, right? So anyways, guys, so it's almost after 6, I have to leave. Thank you for all joining us. Okay, my email address is there, so if you could just note down my email address. My name is Usman Ubaid. The email is Usman, USMAN, @asiapacificgroup.com. Okay. And I'll be able to help you any way I can. Okay. So don't worry. Feel free to contact us. Okay. Quick answer I'll give you right away. For detailed answer, we'll book a consultation, we'll take it from there. Okay. Thank you so much, guys, for joining in, and we'll keep continuing sessions like this. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.